Today I'm going to use the pen tool to create a silo and a transparent background. I'm using Photoshop. So to get started, I need to make sure I've selected the pen tool. I'm going to be using the Command plus key on my keyboard to zoom in really close so I can see what I'm doing. When I want to move things around, I hold down the space bar when I'm in pen tool and I click and drag. You'll notice that the cursor changes from a pen to a hand. And again, this is just so I can see where the edges are on my image that I'm working with. So when I get started with the pen tool, I've got a bunch of things that I'm going to have to knock out here. Actually, let's crop first, okay? Zoom back out. Go to the toolbar, grab the crop tool. And I realize, yeah, we're going to be chopping his hands off, but I only want to see the t-shirt. If I'm happy with that crop, I hit the check mark and we're cropped. Zoom back in. If I zoom in all the way, I can see all the pixels that comprise my image. Sometimes that's helpful, sometimes not. I might zoom back out and grab the pen tool. So the pen tool allows me to click point to point and click and drag to make curved lines. So if I click point to point, I usually click and drag and use my hand tool to allow me to move. I don't want any of the white background. I want to keep this really, really tight. And I can hold down the Command key to change my cursor to a little arrow. I can also hold down the Option key, which is the, oh gosh, what's it called? It's like the Manipulate Anchor Point tool. Either the little Command key to get the little select arrow or Option key to get the Convert Anchor Point tool. Either one will allow you to manipulate the little radii, little handles here. But the Convert Anchor Point tool will allow you to move these independently rather than together. So I'll continue to just click from point to point. Following the curve of his arm. And it's a lot of going back and like I said, I'm making sure that I'm not getting any of the white background in there. I don't want any of that in there. I can always use the Command key and white arrow tool to move any of the points if I think I've put them in the wrong place. So click and drag will give me that nice curved line. Option key will change my cursor to Convert Anchor Point tool. It just gives me a lot more freedom in moving these around and manipulating them. And know something, I'm doing this really, really quickly. It's going to take you longer because I've been doing this for a really long time, so don't give yourself a heart attack. Don't beat up on yourself if it takes you longer. Expect it to when you're first learning how to do this. It can be a little tricky, but once you get the hang of it, usually things start going pretty quickly. The only trick with this is knowing when to use either the Command key or the Command key to bring up the little white arrow or the Option key to bring up the Convert Anchor Point tool. And anything that you do, you can always go back in with the Command key or the Option key to adjust things. And where you have a jagged edge here, I mean, this is one of those, like, you know, do your best, just try to keep it smooth. If there's a curved line, bring it in. Oh, hey, we want his arm, right? Oops. So if you ever put an anchor point in there and you don't want one in there, like I didn't want to do that. So Command Z will undo whatever you last did. I wanted to put the anchor point here. And again, space bar brings up that little hand tool. Option key gives me more control by bringing up the convert anchor point tool. Like now I'm looking at that, I see a lot of white pixels over there. I want to change that. So I'm going to grab, press down my command key and sort of drag that point in. Once I do that, if I want to go back to continuing the line, I'll click this point, hover over it until I see the pen tool with a little minus sign next to it. Usually that's delete anchor point, but if I click here, it just selects the anchor point. You'll just see that other radii pop up. And I always try to do this with as few anchor points as possible. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. The fewer anchor points I have, the smaller the file is going to be. So I'm just going point to point, clicking and dragging. I don't want to bring those points too far into his arm because I'll wind up chopping off stuff and then it won't look very believable. Go back in, adjust, push the points around. And doing my best to just keep things looking smooth. Occasionally I get to a point in a Scylla where I can't really tell like what that stuff is in the background, especially if I'm on a light colored background or a background that's sort of the same color as whatever material I'm working in. And this is where creative license comes into play. I really just try to do my best to keep things accurate. Option key to activate convert anchor point tool. spacebar to click and drag. Command key to manipulate and move points. And I'm probably going to have a few spaces here where we actually see those little white pixels coming through. I'm doing my best not to have them there. If I get them in there, the client's going to complain if they see any kind of blooper or stuff that they don't think should be in there. That's why I'm zoomed in. That's why I can see all the pixels. Move that one down to the bottom. And if I bring my pen tool over here, you'll notice the cursor changes. It's still the pen tool, but there's a little circle next to it. If I click on that, what it does is it closes the path. So now, if I either right-click, select the path, and choose Make Selection, or I can also, over here, and it's like off the screen, it'll do the same thing. It'll say Make Selection. I'm going to do it by right-clicking it from over here and choose Make Selection. Click OK, and it'll give me this dotted line. I can see I have, it shows me a preview. It's teeny, but it shows me the preview of the work path over here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see what I'm doing. Grabbing my spacebar again, pulling down. So what I can do now is duplicate the layer by selecting Command J. And what that will do, I will turn off visibility of my background layer. We've just knocked out the background. So use the pen tool in conjunction with the Command key to manipulate points, the Option key to convert anchor points and move the radii around. Spacebar and pen tool will allow you to click and drag. Command J to duplicate, first right click to make a selection, Command J to duplicate the layer, and now you've got a guy in a t-shirt on a transparent background.